Computers in Europe, North America, and South America were prevalent in the late 70s into the 80s and 90s and onward. However, Japan was a little bit more, let's say, selective in how they chose to use advances in technology. And while they did obviously adopt computers, they didn't use computers for video games like North America or Europe did for a long time. Not until recently that a lot of Japanese developers are actually publishing their games to computers and platforms like Steam. However, a lot of Japanese development companies that exist still today all came out of Japan with the Microsoft MSX, almost starting there with their roots. The MSX was released almost at the same time as Nintendo's family computer in the countries where both were marketed, becoming one of Nintendo's main competitors in Japan. Konami, Sega, Compile, Falcom, and Hudson Soft produced games here, some getting their start here. Like, for example, Konami originally published Metal Gear on the MSX before anywhere else. Hi, my name is Brad, and today on Unbroken Software Studio Tutorials, I'll show you how to get the MSX up and running in a LaunchBox, show you that it does have some English or translated games available for it, and how to get it running through Blue MSX on Retroarch. So I have a full set of MSX games, but the only ones that I have imported into LaunchBox right now are translated games. And so my selection here on the left, my platforms, I have MSX translated and MSX2 translated. The platform names are the MSX, the MSX2, and the MSX-R Turbo. I don't have the R Turbo imported, and like I said, I only have the games imported as the MSX translated. So we'll open up the ROM import under Tools, we'll go to Add Files, and as you can see, I have a couple of different folders. Now, the MSX did release games in two variants, cartridges and diskettes, just like the Commodore did commonly over in Europe. But today we'll be importing the cartridges specifically. So let's import the MSX. I'll import my translated into English ROMs first. So we'll click on a game, Control A to highlight them all, and we'll click Open. We'll click Next. From the drop-down menu, we'll go to the MSX. And again, MSX translated and MSX2 translated is something that I've added afterwards, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So again, click on the MSX, click Next, choose an emulator. This might be blank for you, and if it is, click Add. Type in Retroarch as the emulator name, and remember, you can type in any emulator name that you want. You can add any emulator or any set of files you want to LaunchBox. You're not limited by the default lists. I know that I commonly say to select the default name from the dropdown when importing a system. So that's only so that you can get the best possible scraping out of that system, though. You can technically add anything you want, but if it's not in the database, of course, you're probably going to get very little to no metadata for that system. So just keep that in mind. So type in Retroarch, like I said, hit the browse button and navigate to where you have your retroarch.exe and double click on it. This is what the box should look like. And in the associated platforms list, scroll down, and if you have the MSX associated platform name, check the default command line parameter and make sure that it shows -L quotations cores \blue MSX _ libretro.dll end quotations. If this doesn't exist, or you want to add an MSX translated section like I did, scroll to the bottom, double click, and type in MSX into the associated platform here on the left. And then double click the default command line parameter and add the -L command and point towards the blue MSX core for Retroarch. Again, I've added some custom platforms. Obviously, the system is not called MSX Translated, it is just called the MSX. So, this is all custom. For every associated platform that you add, make sure that you check the default emulator box. That's good for the import process. Once you have Retroarch selected, click Next. Use the files in their current location. We're going to download from the LaunchBox Games database and from Wikipedia. Next. We're going to leave all these selected. Next. Emu Movies has logged me in, so we're going to click the Select All button, and I'm not going to prioritize it over the LaunchBox Games database or Wikipedia. I prefer the LaunchBox Games database. And we're going to click Next, Next, and then here we go are all the games on our list. If there is something in here that you don't want to add, you can click on the game and then press Delete on your keyboard to remove it from the import. Once you're all ready to go ahead and click Finish. Once everything is imported and you have all your metadata downloaded that you would like, and you have it set up to where you just imported your translated MSX games, I want to keep them separate because it is a system that is primarily Japanese based. And I want my translated games to just be separated. So we'll click on a game, we'll hit Control A to highlight them all. We'll right click and edit. We're going to hit Next. This field, we're going to go down and we're going to select Platform. And in this platform, we can select whatever we want or type in our own custom platform like MSX Translated, for example. Now, if you import as MSX Translated, you're probably not going to find much in the way of metadata. Your best possible chances for finding your metadata are if you leave it as MSX. So please keep that in mind. Import as MSX and change the platform name afterwards. With them imported though, we're going to right click and we're going to open Retroarch. We're going to go down to Online Updater with our arrow keys and we're going to press X on the Online Updater. And we're going to press X again on the Core Updater. We already pointed our associated platforms list to the blue MSX core in Retroarch. So let's download it because, generally speaking, if you download the Retroarch.7-zip from their build bot, you're gonna not get cores as they are commonly updated more frequently than they sometimes publish updates to Retroarch. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you may find an older build or even a current build that does ship with the cores included, but remember that those cores were included at the time of their current version. So some of your cores may have been updated since you've downloaded it. So it is good periodically to come in here and update the cores that you use most commonly. So in this case, we're going to scroll down to the M's. MSX here. This is FMSX if you want to use this instead. This is an alternate core, but personally I prefer Blue MSX, and Blue MSX also emulates the ColecoVision, the SVI, and the SG-1000. The ColecoVision and the SG-1000, though, are going to be in separate tutorials later, but more or less, here we go. I'm going to press X on Blue MSX. It's going to download and extract, make sure that it finishes that, and then we're going to close Retroarch. We're going to navigate to where you have Retroarch installed. Your system folder here. This is where all of the BIOS for all of your systems reside. If you've been watching the tutorial series up until this point, you are very familiar with the system folder. Well, now you are going to go and look for MSX BIOS, preferably an MSX BIOS pack or a Retroarch BIOS pack, something that's going to get you your MSX BIOS. If a machines folder does not exist in your system folder, go ahead and create the machines folder. Inside that machines folder is where your MSX BIOS are going to reside. So as you can see here, I've got folders and folders and folders with tons of different information, config INIs, .rom files, all sorts of different BIOS. I've even got BIOS for the SG-1000 in here, the SVI, the ColecoVision, the Fort 2, all sorts of different stuff. And these are just different variations of the MSX. The MSX did get released in other locations in Europe, but it was primarily a Japanese system. If you get a BIOS pack, your BIOS should get sorted similar to how I have it. If not, you're going to have to look up the specifics. What I like to do is go into the info folder in the Retroarch folder, and here houses a lot of information for different cores. So here's the blue MSX_libretro.info file. I've opened this with Notepad++, which is a free download on the internet if you would like it. And in here is lots of different information. Display name, authors, supported extensions, core name, manufacturer, categories, system name, and the like. You can actually edit some of this information. So if you want to add a supported extension to any core, if it's got an info file with it filled out like this, like Mednafin, the PS1 Mednafin core, if you want to add a file extension to that, and it will, you can add it, but it may, have some compatibility issues. But if you want to try a different file extension, but it's not reading or picking up, you could try adding it to the supported extensions list if you would like, and that may help you out there. But for this one, it doesn't specify a specific BIOS, even though they should probably be named something specific, but it does say notes, BIOS files go into the system/machines folder. So that is how I knew to tell you guys where your BIOS would go for the MSX. And it is like that for a lot of systems. They'll either tell you the exact name of the BIOS, if they need to go into a subfolder in your system folder, and other information like that. Now, like LaunchBox and Unbroken Software, they won't tell you where to download or find BIOS, but it does tell you what you need, where to put it, and that sort of thing. And a lot of people have raised questions of why we don't link to ROMs or BIOS files. ROMs is kind of a gray area, but BIOS are not, so we will not be linking to that sort of thing. Well, let's double click a game and see if it works. There's the blue MSX loading screen, and there we go, Romancia. I hope my sound is working. It works one day and it doesn't work the other day. Oh, well, whatever. But that is how you import the MSX games into LaunchBox. You can create a custom system name for them afterwards after importing, and that is the recommended way to play these games is through Blue MSX on Retroarch, and those are where your BIOS go. My name is Brad, and if you guys liked this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and leave us a comment in the comment section below. If you have questions for Jason or myself, I kind of glossed over everything, or you need a little bit more clarification about anything that I covered in this tutorial, please ask your questions below. We are more than happy to answer any of them. If you guys did like this tutorial and helped you out, and it made your collection more beautiful, and it lets you import all your games into a nice front end, give us a subscribe for more tutorials and videos in the future. Remember, Freaks and Geeks, play more games, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.